Please, don't take it off." The fat girl trembled. The fire reached the canvas before the screaming did. Wind tore through Devil's Canyon like it wanted blood, carrying sparks straight into the last wagon tent. Cloth went up fast. Horses broke their lines. Men ran. And somewhere near the canyon edge, a woman went down hard, the sound of her body hitting rock swallowed by the roar of flame. Esther Brennan didn't scream. She lay half on her side, half against the drop, a dead branch driven clean through her shoulder. Blood soaked her wool sweater, turning it dark and stiff. Every breath burned. Every movement threatened to tear the wound wider. Down in the ravine, wolves watched and waited. You could hear them if you listened long enough. "Leave her!" the trail boss shouted through the smoke. "She's too slow. Anyone who stops dies with her." Boots ran past her. Shadows fled. No one looked back. I've seen that moment before. The instant a crowd decides a life is inconvenient. It's quick, quiet, and final. Essie lay there through the night, teeth chattering, eyes fixed on the stars, trying not to pass out because she knew if she did, she wouldn't wake up. The branch stayed where it was. Pulling it out would bleed her dry. Morning came gray and cold. A shadow fell across her face. "Don't move," a man's voice said, low, steady, not kind, but not cruel either. "I'm going to pull it out. Breathe when I tell you." The pain came like lightning. Essie screamed then, couldn't help it. Strong hands pressed cloth into the wound. Whiskey burned. Something herbal and sharp followed. When her vision cleared, she saw him, a mountain man, tall, broad, weathered like the land itself, gray eyes that missed nothing, a rifle nearby, a wolf dog watching from the trees. When he reached for her blood-soaked sweater, she panicked, grabbing the fabric with shaking fingers. "Please, don't take it off." Her voice broke on the last word. He kept going anyway, careful, precise, until he stopped cold, not because of her size, but because of the scars. And in that silence, everything changed. Before we rewind to understand how a woman everyone left behind ended up alone with a mountain man who refused to look away, tell me something. Where are you right now, and what are you doing as you hear this story? Before the fire, before the canyon decided who was worth saving, Esther Brennan had already learned how to make herself small. She grew up in the river towns east of the Bighorns, the kind of places where women were measured by how little space they took up and how quietly they endured it. Essie failed both tests early. By 16, she was already too heavy, too slow, too visible. Men laughed. Women whispered. Her own mother used to tug at her dresses and sigh like shame had weight. So when Elias Brennan asked her to marry him, she said yes before he finished the sentence. Elias worked freight and drank like it was a second job. In public, he called her his big, sturdy wife, laughing like it was a compliment. In private, the joke sharpened. Then the hands, then the belt. Towns like theirs had names for that kind of thing. None of them were justice. When Essie finally ran, she joined a westbound migrant train heading for California. Devil's Canyon was supposed to be a shortcut. It became a graveyard of burned wagons and broken promises. Now she lay miles from any town in a mountain man's arms, with the past literally carved into her skin. Thaddeus Collier was not from a town. He lived in the Absaroka Range, where the land didn't care what you weighed or where you came from. It only cared whether you paid attention. Thad did. He was tall in the way mountains are tall. No excess, no show. His clothes were patched, practical. His hands were scarred with honest work. He came down to settlements twice a year, traded pelts for salt and powder, then vanished again. People called him strange. Some called him dangerous. No one called him kind, because kindness out here didn't announce itself. His cabin sat deep among the pines near a creek that never froze solid. One room, stone hearth, a rough wooden bed and shelves lined with old books. Most men wouldn't bother hauling that far. When he brought Essie there on his horse, he didn't linger at the door like he was expecting gratitude. "You sleep on the bed," he said. "I'll take the chair." That was it. No staring, no hovering, no questions that weren't necessary. When he cleaned her wound, he warned her before touching. When she cried from pain or shame, he didn't tell her to be strong. He just waited. I'll tell you something straight. That kind of restraint doesn't come from innocence. It comes from discipline, from choosing every day what kind of man you refuse to be. The nearest town, Cedar Ridge, sat a half-day ride away. It revolved around cattle money, railroad rumors, and men who mistook noise for authority. The sheriff there owed favors. The judge passed through when the weather allowed, and a woman who left her husband without permission was considered a problem to be returned, not a person to be heard. Essie knew that. Thad knew it too. That's why, when she asked quietly, "Will he find me?" Thad didn't lie. "Yes," he said, "eventually." She swallowed hard. "Then why help me?" Thad stared into the fire for a long moment. "Because leaving you would have been easier," he said, "and I'm done choosing easy. I've sat by fires like that one. I know that tone. It's the sound of a man who's already decided where he stands, even if the cost hasn't arrived yet. And out here, the cost always arrives. The first night Essie's fever broke, she woke to a sound that didn't belong in a cabin, a man's breath, ragged, angry, like he'd been running inside a dream he couldn't outrun. Thad sat on the floor with his back against the wall, boots still on, rifle within reach. His hands were clenched so tight, his knuckles looked bone-white in the firelight. He didn't notice she was awake until the stove gave a soft pop, and he flinched like it was a gunshot. Essie tried to speak, but her throat was sand. She managed to whisper, "Thad?" He turned his head slowly, like he didn't trust his own eyes. Then he reached for the tin cup and helped her drink, careful, as if she might shatter. "Bad dream," she murmured. He didn't deny it. "Old one. Out here, people love to pretend men like Thaddeus Collier are born hard, carved out of rock and cold air. That's the story towns tell because it's simpler than admitting something made them that way. But men aren't forged by weather alone. They're forged by loss." When he rose to change her bandage, the whiskey smell clung to his sleeves. Not drunk whiskey, working whiskey, the kind you pour to clean blood and kill infection. Still, when he uncorked it, his fingers trembled just a little, not from the cold, from memory. Essie saw it and looked away, embarrassed by how much she noticed. It felt dangerous to care. Caring was how you got hurt. Thad peeled back the cloth and checked the wound with a grim patience. "It's healing," he said. Then, quieter, "You'll have a scar." Essie gave a weak, humorless laugh. "One more won't matter." That made him stop. Not like earlier when he found the whip marks. This was different. This was the stillness of a man hearing something too familiar. He didn't ask about her scars again. He already knew. He'd seen enough to read the whole ugly story without words. What he did ask, after a long stretch of silence, was the question that mattered. "What's his name?" Essie's stomach tightened. "Elias." Thad's jaw worked like he was chewing a bitter piece of leather. "And if he shows up here?" Essie wanted to say, "I don't know." She wanted to say, "I'll go. Don't get in trouble for me." She'd lived her whole life offering herself up first, like a shield, like a sacrifice. A fat woman learns early that the world is happier when she's the one paying the price. But Thad looked at her, not at her body, not at her shame, at the part of her that was still alive. "I don't want to die," she admitted, voice shaking. "I don't want to go back, but I don't know how to fight him." Thad's eyes softened for a heartbeat, then hardened again like a door shutting. "You won't fight him alone." That wasn't romance, not yet. It was something older and heavier, a decision. Later, after she fell asleep again, Thad sat at the rough table and opened a small notebook. He wrote by firelight with a dull pencil, the same way a man keeps accounts or tracks traps, dates, temperatures, her pulse when it raced, the color of the swelling around the wound, small sketches of her shoulder and the bruising patterns on her back. It looked like medical notes. It was also evidence. You think a mountain man keeps records for fun? No. He keeps them because he expects a fight, and he refuses to walk into it empty-handed. When morning came, Essie saw him outside splitting wood hard enough to make the axe bite deep. Sweat darkened the collar of his shirt, though the air was cold. His breath came out sharp. Not from exertion, from anger he didn't know where else to put. He caught her watching and set the axe down slowly. "You've got a choice," he said. "I can take you to Cedar Ridge when you're strong enough. There's a circuit judge that passes through sometimes. Or we can run deeper into the range and let the world forget you exist." Essie stared at him. "What would you do?" He looked past her, into the trees, like the answer was written in the distance. "I'm tired of running," he said. That was the wound he didn't show on his skin. Thad wasn't just protecting Essie from Elias, he was trying to stop himself from becoming the kind of man who watches evil happen and calls it "not my business." Because once, years ago, he had watched. He didn't tell the whole story at first. He only said this, voice rough as gravel. "I had a sister. I was too late." Essie's throat tightened. Too late for what? He didn't answer. He just picked up the axe again, and the blade flashed in the pale sun. His goal wasn't revenge, not the simple kind. It was correction, a chance to do the thing he failed to do before, stand between a woman and a man who thought love meant ownership. And Essie's goal. Hers was smaller, but it was everything. To live without flinching, to sleep without listening for boots on a floor, to take off her clothes one day without shaking like she was committing a sin. I've seen people mistake survival for healing. They're not the same. Survival is what you do in the moment. Healing is what you risk when the danger is gone. And the danger wasn't gone. It was riding toward them, fueled by whiskey and entitlement, and lawmen who liked order more than truth. Trouble came on a horse that knew the way. Thad heard it before he saw it. The steady, unhurried rhythm of hooves that didn't belong to a drunk or a boy showing off. He set the axe down and rested his hand near the rifle by the door, not raising it, not hiding it either. That was always his way. The rider emerged between the pines wearing a dust-colored coat and a U.S. Deputy Marshal's badge that caught the light just enough to be noticed. His name was Vernon Kane, tall, narrow-eyed, The kind of man who smiled like he'd already counted the cost and decided it was worth it. Essie watched from the doorway, her shoulders still bound, her breath shallow. Bad men, she understood. Men with papers were worse. "I won't stay long," Kane said, swinging down. "Didn't come to start trouble." Thad studied him. "That's never why men like you come." Kane smiled thinly. "Fair." They stood a few feet apart, neither offering a hand. Two wolves deciding whether the other was worth biting. "I'm here about a woman," Kane said, glancing past Thad just long enough for Essie to know she'd been seen. "Esther Brennan." Thad didn't move. "She's hurt." "So I heard," Kane replied. "Her husband filed a claim. Says she ran off. Wants her returned." Essie's knees weakened, but she stayed standing. That mattered. Thad noticed. "She didn't run," Thad said. "She escaped." Kane shrugged. "That's not how the law writes it." There it was, the line, clean, cold. "I've heard it before. Men say it when they don't want to look too close." Kane stepped closer, lowering his voice. "Between you and me, Collier, I don't like Brennan. Mean drunk, always has been. But liking someone isn't jurisdiction." Thad's jaw tightened. "Then why warn me?" Kane hesitated. Just a beat, enough to show there was something else under the badge. "Because if I drag her back myself, this ends ugly. For her, for you. And I'd rather not spill blood in the mountains if there's another way." "What way?" Thad asked. "A deal. It's always a deal." "There's a circuit judge coming through in 2 weeks," Kane said. "Judge Frost, old, fussy, hates being lied to. If you can prove abuse, real proof, he might grant a separation order." "And until then?" Thad said. "Until then, she stays put," Kane replied. "Under your supervision, officially." Essie felt the word land heavy. Supervision still sounded like ownership. "And Brennan?" Thad asked. Kane's mouth tightened. "I tell him the judge wants to see her alive and in one piece. That'll slow him down." Thad stared at Kane for a long moment, measuring, weighing. Finally he said, "If you're lying—" "I know," Kane cut in. "You'll kill me." That wasn't bravado. It was acceptance. Kane tipped his hat toward Essie. 2 weeks, he said. "Get your proof, or I come back with irons." He mounted up and rode off, leaving silence behind like a challenge. Essie sank onto the step, hands shaking. "He can still take me?" Thad crouched in front of her, voice low. "Not without a fight." She searched his face. "And if the judge doesn't listen?" Thad looked toward the trees, toward the deeper wild where laws thinned and men vanished. "Then we choose," he said. "Out here, allies rarely arrive clean. They come with conditions, with clocks ticking. And 2 weeks was a short fuse on a long stick of dynamite. The first mistake people make about the mountains is thinking danger arrives all at once. It doesn't. It creeps in slow, like rot in a beam, like doubt in a man who's survived too long on his own. Day 1 after Kane left, Thad doubled the perimeter. Traps reset, rifle cleaned twice. The wolf dog, Ash, was restless, pacing the tree line, hackles rising at sounds Essie couldn't hear yet. Thad trusted that more than instinct. Animals didn't lie to themselves. Essie watched all of it from the doorway, wrapped in Thad's old coat, her injured shoulder still stiff and angry. She hated feeling useless, hated it more than pain. "I can help," she said. Thad didn't look at her. Not yet. That stung. He heard it in her breath. Later that night, he handed her a revolver, short barrel, heavy kick. "If he comes," Thad said, "you don't fire to scare. You fire to stop. Aim low if you must. Hands, legs. Only center if there's no choice. Essie's fingers shook around the grip. I know, Thad said. That's why we start now. I've seen this kind of teaching before. Not heroic, not cinematic, just honest. The kind that admits fear and moves anyway. Over the next days, Essie learned fast. Too fast for someone who'd been told her whole life she was slow. She missed often, flinched more. But she didn't quit. When her shoulder screamed, she bit down and kept going. Thad noticed. He also noticed the nights. Night 1, Essie woke screaming. Night 2, she didn't scream, but she sat upright, gasping, eyes unfocused, hands clawing at air that wasn't there. Night 3, Thad found her outside at dawn, standing barefoot in frost, staring toward the canyon. "He's coming," she whispered. "Who?" Thad asked. "My husband," she said. "I can feel it." Thad said nothing. Men like Brennan didn't need omens. They followed possession the way wolves followed blood. On the 4th day, they found tracks. 3 horses, one heavy, one light, one limping. Thad crouched, fingers brushing disturbed earth. He brought help. Essie's stomach dropped. "Will Cain stop him?" Thad stood. "Cain slows men. He doesn't change them." They moved Essie deeper into the cabin, cleared a secondary exit, cached food and water. Thad hated retreating. But survival wasn't pride. It was math. That night, gunfire cracked through the trees. Not close. Not yet. A warning. Ash growled low, teeth bared. Essie's hands trembled around the revolver. "I don't want you to die because of me." Thad met her eyes. "You're not the cause. He is." That mattered more than it sounded. By morning, one of the traps was sprung, not by accident, deliberately disabled. Brennan knew what he was doing. They came again that evening, closer this time. A shout echoed through the pines, slurred, familiar. "Essie, you think hiding with a mountain savage changes what you are?" Essie froze. Her breath went shallow. Thad stepped forward, rifle raised, but not firing. "Turn around," he called. "You don't belong here." Brennan laughed, a wet, ugly sound. "She belongs to me." The words landed like a slap. Ownership spoken aloud always sounds worse than it does on paper. A shot rang out. Dirt kicked up inches from Thad's boots. That ended talking. Thad fired once, clean, controlled. The bullet tore through a tree trunk inches from Brennan's head. "Next one's not a warning," Thad said. Silence followed, then retreating footsteps. Essie collapsed against the wall, shaking. "I thought I was done being hunted." Thad lowered the rifle. "Predators don't stop because prey gets tired." That night, Essie didn't sleep. Neither did Thad. Day 6, Brennan didn't come. That worried Thad more than gunfire. They used the time. Essie practiced shooting until her palms blistered. Thad taught her how to pack a wound, how to recognize shock, how to move quietly through brush without snapping twigs. "You planning to get rid of me?" Essie asked, forcing a weak smile. "No," Thad said, "planning to keep you alive." Day 8, they found a body. One of Brennan's men, throat torn out. Ash stood over the corpse, blood on his muzzle, eyes bright. Wolves didn't kill like that. Men did. Thad's jaw tightened. "Brennan's desperate." Essie's voice was small. "He'll blame me." "He already does," Thad said. That night, Essie broke. She sat by the fire, shoulders hunched, staring into embers like they might answer her back. "I keep thinking," she said, "if I were smaller, faster, quieter, maybe no one would have left me. Maybe he wouldn't have hit me. Maybe—" "No," Thad said, sharp enough to cut. She looked up, startled. "No," he repeated, softer now. "Men don't hurt women because of weight. They hurt because they're empty and angry and looking for something weaker." Essie swallowed. "I don't feel strong." Thad considered that. "Strength isn't feeling," he said. "It's staying." The next morning the deputy marshal returned. Kane rode in alone this time. No badge, shine, no smile. "He's not listening anymore," Kane said flatly. "Brennan's drunk, armed, and I don't have enough law to stop him before the judge arrives." Essie's heart pounded. "So what happens?" Kane looked at Thad. "I give you time." "How?" Thad asked. Kane reached into his coat and handed over a folded paper. "Temporary stay order, not worth much in court, but it might make Brennan hesitate." "And if it doesn't?" Essie asked. Kane met her gaze. "Then I won't look too hard at what happens up here." He mounted and left again, slower this time. That was the deal, a thin one. That afternoon, Essie overheard Thad sharpening his knife. "You're planning something," she said. "Yes," he replied. "You won't tell me?" "I will," he said, "but not because you ask, because you're part of it." That night, Brennan came for real. No warning shots, no shouting, just fire. A torch arced through the dark, landing against the cabin wall. Flames licked upward, fast, greedy. Essie screamed. Thad moved. He shoved her toward the back exit. "Go, now." "I won't leave you," she cried. "You will," he said, gripping her shoulders hard, "and you will survive." Brennan burst from the trees, gun raised, face twisted with drink and rage. "There you are!" Thad fired, missed. Brennan fired back. Wood splintered. Essie ran. She hated herself for it, hated the relief in her legs. Behind her, gunfire echoed. Men shouted. One screamed. Essie reached the ravine, heart hammering, and turned back. Smoke rose over the cabin. She thought of every time she'd been told to stay quiet, to hide, to be less. She lifted the revolver, ran back. She saw Brennan first, close, too close. His gun aimed at Thad's chest. Essie fired. The shot went wide, but it startled him. Thad didn't waste the moment. One shot, center mass. Brennan fell hard, the sound final as a door slamming shut. Silence followed, broken only by fire crackle and Essie's ragged breathing. Thad turned, eyes wide, not with anger, but fear. "You shouldn't have come back." Essie's hands shook violently. "I'm done being left." He pulled her into a fierce, wordless embrace. The cabin burned, not completely, but enough. By dawn, all that remained was smoke, ash, and a body cooling in the dirt. And somewhere down the mountain, a judge was riding closer. This wasn't over. Not yet. But Essie had crossed a line she couldn't uncross, and sometimes that's where survival really begins. This is the part where stories usually lie to you. They tell you the monster is dead, the fire is out, and the woman is finally safe. They fade the smoke into sunrise and call it justice. But the West never worked that way. Judge Nathaniel Frost arrived 2 days later, riding a tired bay horse and carrying the kind of silence that comes from seeing too much and believing very little. He took one look at the burned cabin, the shallow grave by the pine, and Essie's bandaged shoulder, and didn't ask who fired first. He asked who fired last. They sat in the open, no courthouse, no pews. Just a rough table, 3 witnesses Kane had scraped together, and the mountains watching like they always do. Brennan's body lay wrapped nearby, waiting for paperwork to decide whether he'd been a husband or a threat. Essie stood when questioned. Her voice shook, but it didn't break. "He beat me," she said, For years, he followed me here. He tried to kill us." Frost nodded slowly. "And you?" he asked Thad. Thad didn't answer right away. He stared at the dirt, jaw clenched, hands scarred and still. "I killed him," he said finally. Essie turned, stunned. "Thad," he didn't look at her. "He drew on me. I fired." That was true, but not the whole truth. Judge Frost studied Thad for a long moment. "Deputy Kane," he said, "did you see the shooting?" Kane hesitated. "Just enough." "No, sir." "Did anyone?" Silence. That's when Frost leaned back and delivered the cut. "Mr. Collier," he said, "you're not the first mountain man I've met. Men like you don't just survive storms. You survive guilt, and I don't think this is the first time you've pulled a trigger to protect someone." Thad's hand twitched. Essie felt it then, the shift beneath her feet. Frost continued, voice calm and sharp. 10 years ago, outside Bozeman, a man matching your description killed another man in a dispute over a woman. That case disappeared. So did you." The air went cold. Essie looked at Thad, her chest tightening. "What is he talking about?" Thad closed his eyes. "I had a sister," he said quietly. "Her husband beat her. One night I came home early. He reached for her again." He swallowed. "I shot him." Essie's breath caught. "They called it murder," Thad continued. "I called it stopping him. I ran before the rope could decide which word mattered." Judge Frost folded his hands. "So when you say you killed Brennan in self-defense," he said, "you understand why the law might hear a pattern." Essie stepped forward. "He saved my life." Frost met her gaze. "And now he may lose his own because of it." This was the twist no one prepares for, the rescuer standing where the condemned once knelt. Thad finally looked at Essie. His eyes were tired. "Ready." "I won't run again," he said. "I'm done leaving things unfinished." Essie shook her head, panic rising. "You can't." "I can," he said softly. "And I will." Judge Frost considered them both. Then he did something unexpected. He stood. "I've buried enough good men because the law arrived late," he said. "And I've buried enough women because it never arrived at all." He turned to Kane. "Deputy, you will report this as justifiable homicide. Brennan violated a temporary stay and initiated armed assault." Kane exhaled slowly. "Yes, sir." Frost faced Thad one last time. "This is not mercy," he said. "It's a warning. If you disappear again, I won't look away next time." Thad nodded once. "Understood." When the judge rode off, Essie's legs gave out. She laughed and cried at the same time, clutching Thad's coat like it was the only solid thing left in the world. "I thought I lost you," she whispered. Thad rested his forehead against hers. "So did I. Sometimes the deepest wound isn't what you've done. It's believing you don't deserve to stay. High noon didn't come with church bells. It came with heat pressing down like a hand on the back of your neck, with dust hanging in the air so still it felt nailed there. Redemption didn't happen in this town, no matter what they called it. Judgment did. They gathered on the main street anyway. Word had traveled faster than truth ever does. A dead husband. A mountain man who'd pulled a trigger. A woman who didn't come back when she was told. People always show up when they think they might get to watch a line get crossed. Thad walked beside Essie, not touching her, but close enough that their sleeves brushed. I noticed that. Men who plan to run don't walk like that. Men who plan to stay do. Deputy Kane stood near the hitching rail, hand loosed near his holster. Eyes moving. Not nervous. Calculating. The sheriff leaned against the saloon wall, pretending this wasn't his mess. It never is until it is. Then Elias Brennan's brother stepped out. Caleb Brennan. Meaner. Quieter. The kind that doesn't drink before noon because he likes to remember what he does. "You think this ends because one judge got sentimental," Caleb called out. "You killed my brother." Thad stopped walking. Essie felt it before she saw it. The way his shoulders set, the way his breathing slowed. I've seen that look. It's the look of a man who's counted the exits and decided none of them matter. "He came for her," Thad said. Not loud, not angry, just true. "He won't do it again?" Caleb spat in the dust. "You don't get to decide that." That's when the clock started ticking. Not the kind you hear, the kind you feel in your bones. Someone shouted. Someone else moved. A hand twitched near a gun. Essie stepped forward. That surprised everyone, including Thad. "She is not property," she said, her voice shaking but carrying. "She never was. If you want blood to feel like a man, you'll have to go through me, too." The street went quiet. Caleb laughed once. "You think standing there makes you brave?" "No," Essie said. "It makes me done being afraid." "I'll tell you something. Courage doesn't sound like shouting. It sounds like someone who's tired of begging." Caleb's gun came up. Thad moved faster. The shots were sharp, final. 2 of them. Dust jumped. A window shattered. Someone screamed. When it was over, Caleb Brennan lay on the ground clutching his leg. Gun skittered away. Thad stood still, smoke drifting from his barrel. Face unreadable. He'd aimed low. That mattered. Kane drew his weapon, then stopped. He looked at Caleb, looked at Thad, looked at the crowd that had gone very quiet now that the cost was clear. "Drop it," Kane said to no one in particular. Thad lowered the rifle and set it on the ground. No one cheered. No one clapped. That's how you know it was real. The sheriff cleared his throat. "Looks like self-defense to me." Of course it did, now that no one important was bleeding out. Kane approached Thad. "You could have killed him." Thad nodded. "I chose not to." Essie let out a breath she'd been holding since the first shot. Her knees nearly buckled. Thad caught her this time, one arm firm around her back. "I'm here," he said quietly. "I'm still here." And that was the real victory. Not the man on the ground. Not the guns cooling in the sun. It was the choice to stay standing when running would have been easier. Out here, that's the hardest kind of courage. Gun smoke fades fast in the west. Consequences don't. By sundown, the street was empty again. Caleb Brennan was hauled away with his leg bound tight and his pride leaking out of him. No charges filed, no apologies offered. Just the usual understanding. The mountains would remember, even if the town pretended not to. Thad and Essie didn't stay to hear the gossip rot into legend. They walked back the way they came, dust clinging to their boots, the heat easing into something almost kind. Neither of them spoke much. Words feel heavy after you've almost lost everything. That night, the cabin felt smaller, safer. Thad cleaned his rifle in silence, hands steady, jaw tight. Essie watched from the table, tracing the rim of a tin cup, realizing that freedom doesn't arrive clean. It limps in, carrying scars. "I thought surviving was the hard part," she said softly. Thad nodded. "Living after is worse." Outside, the wind moved through the pines like a low breath. No cheering, no music, just the sound of 2 people still standing when they easily could have fallen. The West doesn't give happy endings. It gives quiet ones. I've lived long enough to know this. The West doesn't care who you were supposed to be. It only watches who you choose to be when fear is closest. Essie didn't find strength by becoming smaller. She found it by refusing to disappear. Thad didn't become a hero by pulling a trigger. He became one by knowing when not to. Out here, love isn't loud. It's a hand that stops shaking, a body that no longer flinches, a choice to stay. So tell me, honestly now, where are you right now, and what are you doing as you hear the end of this story?